I saw the first Knives Out film 3 times in the cinema. That's a pretty rare occurrence that's usually saved for Creed movies or Top Gun Maverick, but I adored that first film. The memorable characters, the comedy, the style that made it feel like you were reading a detective noir by the fireplace, but with a modern twist on it. Daniel Craig with his fantastic Kentucky Fried Foghorn
Leghorn drawl!
All of it being a clever subversion of a genre without constantly trying to draw attention to the fact that it's a subversion of a genre. For me, it's a pretty perfect movie, and a lot of people felt a similar way, which is why it was successful, and of course, a sequel was greenlit. Now these days, a sequel to an original film that I loved has me both excited and nervous. Excited because of course I want to see more of this world and what this writer-director can offer, but nervous because I don't want this special film for me to be slightly dragged down by what came after. All of this is to say that I went into Knives Out 2 cautiously excited, and I left having gotten something honestly better than I was expecting. So spoilers ahead, big ol' spoilers. Today I'm talking about what makes Glass Onion a perfect sequel. An ideal sequel should give the audience more of what they enjoyed in the first film while building on it organically. Not a total departure that leaves the audience confused, but also not a safe retread that leaves you feeling like you could have just rewatched the first film. And Glass Onion does that perfectly. If you look at a loose overall summary, it's pretty much the same movie. A group of unlikable characters gather, there's a murder mystery that Benoit Blanc has to solve, but ultimately the film is more about this other character. But it's the subtle changes in the details of that story that makes this stand out. Just aesthetically, we go from the dark, fall-time manor environment to a summertime Greek island. Rian Johnson's unique style keeps everything feeling fresh, and the jokes, while a lot of them are still political, poke at different areas of politics and just social stuff, which we'll get to. Benoit as a character doesn't feel like a tired impression of what he was in the first film, which happens with some franchises with iconic characters. He still feels like a fully fleshed out, fun character. The only times at the start when he can start to feel a bit like a bumbling parody of himself, it's revealed later that he was doing that intentionally as part of a plan. Side note, I do like that in this film they do show more of how great of a detective Benoit actually is, because in the first film, a lot of the mystery sort of falls into his lap until he figures it out at the end. In small ways like ruining Miles's murder mystery, and in bigger ways like the actual murder, I enjoyed seeing Benoit actually being a very competent detective here. The best example of this film following the first film without redoing it is the way it subverts the detective mystery genre. The first film had such an interesting way of presenting a murder mystery, showing you the actual death at the start and us thinking we're following the murderer the whole time, but slowly unraveling that there is actually more to the story than initially presented, as you would in a typical murder mystery. Here, Rian Johnson finds a unique subversion that is unique to not just a typical mystery story, but to the first film's own unique story, with the fake-out murder mystery party, then the death of Duke and the fake-out death of Helen, before revealing the actual murder happened much earlier, and that Benoit and Helen have been carrying out their own separate investigation this whole time. It's brilliant. It again keeps the viewer on their toes, and makes a type of story where you feel like you've seen everything they could do with it feel fresh again. Quick reminder here that if you're enjoying this video as much as Benoit Blanc hates Clue, drop a like, subscribe, hit the bell button, and comment your thoughts on the film down below. Also, after the video, check out my podcast, The Poorly Planned Podcast, fun movie TV talk. Alright, back to the video. In my video about The Boys last year, I talked about how political satire has become so oversaturated over the past few years that even if you agree with its message, it's hard to not roll your eyes sometimes when it's lazily done. And this and the first Knives Out film are great examples of how to do it well. Like The Boys. It's a lot more overt in this one. In the first film, obviously there was satire about the wealthy, there were occasional political jokes, and the idea of immigration was pretty central to the main character. Here, the rich people satire is turned up to 11, with a specific focus on the Elon Musk 21st century type of tech entrepreneur who thinks he's a genius, but is really just extremely shallow and an idiot. And there's a lot more about corporations, cancellation, social media, but all of this, the trying to relate to modern culture stuff, could be very cringy and immediately dated feeling. Hell, even the pandemic stuff I might normally hate. We just got out of the pandemic, can we please not be reminded of it already? But Rian Johnson weaves it into the story so well that it isn't annoying. The story isn't only political satire, so it gets boring and stale, but the film also doesn't just stop at random points to start giving us an awkwardly forced-in lecture about why these kinds of people are pathetic and have no spine. It's a fun mystery film first, but it also wouldn't work without these integral character traits that lead to the decisions that fuel the mystery. It isn't just comedy or great quotes from Benoit.
It's a dangerous thing to mistake speaking without thought for speaking the truth.
The parts of this film that are meant to be satirical also allow for the main character's arc and the mystery story to develop in as interesting and satisfying ways as possible, which is why it isn't annoying. It's not very subtle at all, and it isn't eye-roll inducing. That's impressive. Also, besides being really funny, the Miles Braun, Elon type character being revealed as the killer, and it baffling Benoit that it isn't some amazingly thought-out scheme, he's actually just that stupid.
Pineapple juice! He just put pineapple juice in his whiskey.
It's so dumb.
Is not only a hilarious scene, but another great way to subvert the mystery genre. Also, I realize this does not count as social satire, but the Among Us moment, I just can't not mention that that's here. I just need that to be in this video, that Benoit Blanc is introduced playing Among Us while wearing a fez in a tub.
Wait, hold on.
A mongoose.
I'm certainly not the first to make this observation, but there are so many films that come out these days that just feel like assembly line products, like the filmmakers had a preset timeline in an editing software and just filled in the various boxes that needed filling in. This goes not only for stories, but also for visual style, visual flair. There are so few mainstream films now that have distinctive style to them, and this film has it in droves. Part of why Edgar Wright is my favorite director is the creativity and the time and care that is clearly put into making the films as aesthetically interesting as they are narratively interesting, if not more so. Not in a way that distracts from, but complements the narrative. And this film does that excellently. The slick editing in that opening scene that introduces us to what we need to know about these characters, even Miles Braun, who isn't in the scene besides his over-the-top, self-congratulatory puzzle boxes, but it also tells us everything we need to know about the film's tone. Little moments like the way the gunshot moment is shot, the building of tension with the use of the Google alerts and the Mona Lisa glass during this scene. The film just has this captivating vibe to it and so much style that makes it so much more entertaining to watch. Alright, so I've stroked this movie's ego a lot in this video. Is it absolutely perfect? I'm gonna say no, it has one or two problems. There is the aforementioned Among Us reference, which I still can't decide if it's genius or horrendous. Leaning towards genius though, but the film could maybe have 10 minutes shaved off of it. At a certain point during the twist flashback section of the film, it can start to feel a tad clumsy and repetitive. Some of those revelations and eavesdropping moments and revisiting scenes we'd seen before, but from a new perspective now, could have possibly been tightened up a bit. But honestly, that's all I can really think of that I didn't like. As Schmidt once said,
every beautiful thing has one flaw.
Although again, depending on where we land on that Among Us thing, that could change.
2 flaws. Okay. 2 flaws. No beautiful thing has 2 flaws.
All in all, Glass Onion, A Knives Out Mystery is the perfect sequel, in that it perfectly navigates the pitfalls of making a sequel. It gives the audience more of what they enjoyed from the first film, the style, the politically driven humor, the subversion of the mystery story, while adding new spice to all of those so the film doesn't just play as a cheap knockoff rerun of the first film. It feels like it was made because Rian Johnson genuinely wanted to make it, not because he was forced to, and for that reason, I'm more than down to see what he does next, which seemingly might be more Knives Out movies. Having these movies pile up in a series of cozy mystery thrillers like a modern-day Hardy Boys or Hercule Poirot or Nancy Drew or Johnny Gossamer, that sounds pretty great to me. I'll give Glass Onion a 9.5 out of 10. But what did you think of Glass Onion? Let me know all of your thoughts down below in the comments. While you're at it, be sure to like this video, subscribe for more videos like the one you just watched, check out this podcast that I do with a friend of mine where we talk about movies, TV shows, a bunch of nonsense. It's called The Poorly Planned Podcast. Check out my Instagram and Twitter at BHL_Hudson, my TikTok at BHL Hudson, and my letterbox at RealBHL Hudson. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.